which leads South Africa, otherwise known as the African National Congress. Now, I'm going to post this link to my Telegram group, so just everybody, just please bear with me on this. And hope everybody is doing well. Hope you guys are having a good day. Hope you guys are doing well. And just hang on one second. I'm going to post this onto some of my groups. That's the link to one of them, and let me post to. Hang on one second. Let me. I just have something in live chat right here. Okay, and Rebellious Ruth. Hey, how are you, Rebellious Ruth? Good to see you on this channel. And just hang on one second, and posting it on to some of my Facebook friends as well, and also to my Telegram groups. So, Rebellious Ruth, how are you? And you got 2 viewers right here. And just hang on one second. Now posting to the Telegram groups. And just hang on one second. Okay, there you guys go. Okay, 2 people have tuned in so far. Thank you very much, guys, for being here. Now 3 people have tuned in. Okay, the live stream's talking about the ANC's ineptness. Okay, Pfizer had just, the company that makes the vaccine that's 90% effective, has offered to sell the vaccine to the ANC in South Africa about at half cost. Meaning they're going to sell them at $10 a bottle versus what they sell other countries, which is about $20 a bottle. Well, the ANC says they can't afford it, and they also say it's cost effective. Here's the ANC covering for their own ineptness, and it's not as much as of a sense of entitlement as it just them being stupid. Let me explain. South Africa's rand and currency is, their currency called the South African rand is in junk status. The rand is in junk status, and the South African government cannot afford that. Also, with the public healthcare systems, they don't have the proper cooling units to house this Pfizer vaccine. Now, the Moderna vaccine can just be housed in a refrigerator, but the Pfizer vaccine requires a special cooling system, and their public healthcare system is so inept right now that they do not have the proper cooling units for this Pfizer vaccine. Now, let me explain what else is going on. You guys have probably seen this video. Ronaldo Host posted it and did a very good job posting it, where this lady was in a public hospital, over 70 years old, and she was begging for oxygen. In the waiting room, she was begging for oxygen, and there were patients lying on the floor of the waiting room because they didn't have hospital beds to house them. Well, she was begging for oxygen for hours and never got it, and she died in the public healthcare waiting room, which was a sick and sadistic situation. I know most of you guys probably are at work and are not able to tune in, but this was really the only time I could live stream today, so I'm gonna go about I'm gonna go about 30 minutes or so, and then Tony Nagy says, "Hey, Rebellious Ruth, all good." Thank you guys both for tuning in. And if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to write in the chat. Okay, Rebellious Ruth says the government hospitals are literally able to provide, if practical and saline solution, very bad, no beds, no medicine, and that's true. I mean, and not enough doctors, and it's bad. Yes, and there was at least 577 billion rand that was designed for healthcare funds that the ANC has not accounted for. Those are for unaccounted for funds. But you see, the ANC, they drive Bentleys, they drive Lamborghinis, they drive Ferraris. That's where the unaccounted funds have ended up. They use that money to defraud the public of their health care, and the ANC says health care is a right. There's a debate if health care is a privilege versus health care is a right. But the ANC states health care is a right, and they want to provide public health care, but at the same time, they embezzle funds and do not provide the average South African with the health care that they say they are that the average South African is entitled to. And so, if you cannot afford private health care in South Africa, you're pretty much SOL, shit out of luck. Unfortunately, you are shit out of luck. Okay, I'm going to talk about also, that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about. And then Rebellious Truth says, thank God for private health care, but you pay heavy for it. That is true. That's the same in the Republic. When I lived there, they had public and private healthcare facilities. And the the public healthcare facilities, they had a joke: you enter sick, you exit dead. A lot of the public healthcare facilities did not have, did not have elevators, and so you had to be carried up a flight of stairs with the IV dangling. So one person held the IV while the rest of the people carried the bed. And here we go. And then Rebellious Ruth also said, Brett, hold on. I guess that comment didn't go through. Just hang on. But yeah. Here we go. No, it was Tony Nagy. I'm sorry. Brett, do you think the ANC will be honest with the vaccine distribution of just placebos? I see people are questioning their honesty. Have you heard this too? Yes. Actually, I have heard that. And yeah, and I think the ANC would just hold out a lot of the vaccines for their cronies and then screw over the average South African. Although, with that being said, everybody is just bitching, moaning, and groaning about the ANC. And I know you guys don't vote for them. Many of my viewers don't. But the public still votes for them because of the role the ANC played in ending apartheid, which, if you watch the documentary Tainted Heroes, the ANC did not play that much of a role in ending the apartheid system. And it was really not the ANC. It was more the IFP. It was also the result of sanctions put on South Africa. And the ANC may have had the idea of that, but the ANC largely fled South Africa during apartheid, and many of their leaders were living a luxurious life abroad in other African countries. And one of the ANC top officials, Chris Hani, brought that up. And he was right. There's a lot of things that Chris Hani said that I didn't agree with, but Chris Hani was right on that. So, yes. Okay, another thing I did want to talk to you about is the American conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. Okay, Dinesh D'Souza had made a documentary back in 2016 called Obama's America. Hold on. Rebellious Truth says it's crazy. It was pressure from the UK and the sanctions is correct. Brett, have you ever been to South Africa? Unfortunately, I've not. Honestly concerned about getting arrested at the airport by the ANC government if that happens. Because I have made several videos on South Africa and made YouTube comments. But Rebecca should not sure if you know this. I had a racist South African coworker when I was in South Korea when I talked for the South Korean Air Force. And he was not even black by South African standards. By South African standards, he was colored. But he was like Eusebius McKaiser, saw himself as black and blamed apartheid and colonialism for all of South Africa and all of Africa's problems. And I researched a lot of South Africa in that. Just hang on one second. Yes, sir.
Do you think, are you available or not?
I'll be available in about 10 minutes.
Okay. No worries.
Okay. Sorry, that was my dad. I had to go take care of something. So I'm gonna go in about 10 more minutes. But what I was said no hurry. So what I was gonna say is three and I understand if you guys got other things to do. Tony Nagy says, I believe people have the best vax to fix the country. It's called vote immunity from ANC. Laugh out loud. That is exactly true. And like I said, but people keep voting for the ANC, so it's getting harder and harder for me to feel for the average South African, because while they didn't get a lot of as many votes in the last election, particularly in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, the Inkatha Freedom Party really helped gain a lot of ground in that province. The average South African just keeps voting for the ANC and voting for the ANC, and the ANC keeps screwing South Africa over, and that is just crazy. And as I pointed out, go back to Dinesh D'Souza. He made a movie called Obama's America, which documented Obama's life, where it basically said that Obama wasn't anti-white, he wasn't anti-white, he wasn't like what you may call anti-American, but he was anti-colonialist. And what that means is it's a third world anti-colonialism that many of you Africans are familiar with. It's an anti-Christian doctrine, it's an anti-Western doctrine, and it blames colonialism for a lot of the problems. Most Americans are not familiar with that, but Dinesh D'Souza grew up in India, and he was familiar with that anti-colonialism. Well, after the movie was made, President Obama indicted Dinesh D'Souza on campaign fraud. which that was a rule, and Dinesh D'Souza did break the law. He gave a candidate of his too much money, a candidate friend of his too much money to a campaign. Antonio says Dinesh is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And while that did go on, that law was what you call a blue law. It was never enforced until Dinesh D'Souza committed it. Nobody had ever been indicted, much less prosecuted and convicted for this crime. And Dinesh D'Souza was ordered to a federal confinement facility for about, I believe, 6 months to a year. Throughout the day, he could do whatever he wanted to do, but he had to check in about 7 o'clock at night to at 7 o'clock at night to go and sleep in the federal confinement facility. And most of the people in that confinement facility were rapists, murderers, people that had committed a lot of crime. And he would tell them, he said, I gave a friend of mine too much money, and the inmates would laugh about it, like, damn, like, seriously. So that is why President Trump pardoned Dinesh D'Souza, and Dinesh D'Souza can vote again. Rebellious Truth says the ANC government has done worse to their people than most dictators. Starvation, non-service delivery. It's honestly awful. That is true. That's why many people want to move to the Western Cape province. That is not the only province in South Africa that's not ANC controlled. It's DA controlled, because the service delivery in the Western Cape province is a lot better than in the rest of South Africa. So yeah, I hope to go to South Africa one day. Right now with the COVID, I'm trying not to travel until I get the vaccine. That's my personal deal. But and Tony Nagy, I have a lot of friends who live in Montreal. Love it. My mother has actually visited Montreal when she was a missionary in Vermont years and years ago. She took a day trip to Montreal, and she said it was pretty nice, pretty cool. I've never been. Always wanted to go to Montreal. One of the main reasons is because at the moment I can't afford to visit France. Hope to go to France one day, but Montreal is like a poor middle class guy's way of seeing France, and it looks very French, even though it's right in North America because it was settled by French settlers, and it looks absolutely cool. When I was growing up, Montreal had a baseball team called the Montreal Expos, and I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, so I was a fan of their rival, but it was always cool to watch them, and I always wanted to go see them play in Montreal. The team's now relocated to Washington, D.C. They're the Washington Nationals, but I one day want to wish they would come back so I could go see them play. All right. Oh, and I'm wearing Ronaldo Host's old school African Strong shirt. You see that right there? It's an old school shirt. This is back when he did his merchandise through Teespring, and he did his merchandise through Teespring, and I was able to get the merchandise now, and I was able to purchase it. Can't do that now. He purchases it in South Africa, and the shipping cost is too much. But most of his viewers and fans are South African. So yeah, Tony Nagy says he lived 4 years in Quebec. That is awesome. Everybody I know who've been to Quebec so they have positive experiences. I've never heard of a negative experience. And this really happened because France opposed the Iraq War. But it's not true that French soldiers are cowards. World War II, it was mostly intellectuals in their government that had a quick surrender to Germany. But in the Korean War, France won almost every single battle that they fought against the North Koreans and the Chinese. They not every battle like the Ethiopian soldiers, but it was almost every battle. And they were led by a guy named Ralph Montclair, who was a lieutenant colonel. He was a general, but he took a demotion in rank to lead the French battalion in the Korean War, and it was excellent. And he was an excellent commander. One time the French ran out of ammunition defending a hill, so they put the bayonets on their guns and did a bayonet charge. And yeah, it thwarted the Chinese invasion of the hill. And Matthew Ridgway, who replaced MacArthur as commander of the UN forces in the Korean War, said that was the most heroic thing he had ever seen from any army. So you got to give the French military props for that. And also, not the second, but the first Gulf War, they really helped the U.S. military and secured a key position when the U.S. forces led by the U.S. liberated Kuwait from Saddam Hussein's rule. But yeah, when Dinesh D'Souza made the movie Obama's America, he was indicted on campaign fraud, which, like I said, he committed, but it was nobody had ever been indicted for that, much less tried and convicted, and it was just a bad situation. But then in 2014, he made the movie America, Imagine a World Without Her, and that's kind of where we're headed right now under the Biden presidency, unless something changes. I love America, and America was not founded on all this inequality and all this nonsense. There were elements of it, yes, but while our founding fathers did own slaves, they passed so much legislation politically and intellectually to ensure that slavery could not survive. One example was just 20 years after the American Revolution, they passed the Northwest Ordinance of 1796, which banned slavery in the Northern Territories. And also, in 1820, the Missouri Compromise, where Missouri was admitted as a slave state, but Maine was admitted to the Union as a free state. So they knew that slavery would eventually die out, and George Washington freed his slaves at his death. And one of the reasons he did that was because he saw how heroic many African American soldiers fought in the American Revolution. Oh yeah, you said the minibus taxis here in South Africa, people are people. One guy he says, Clarence says, Clem, excuse me, says, I forgot to click the bell. I'll watch full stream later. That's cool. Well, welcome, Clem. Thank you very much. At a last minute assignment, so I'm gonna probably have to get out of here in about 5 minutes. But yeah, but I'm gonna say this: the taxi industry got everything they wanted during the lockdown, and that is why the COVID-19 spread. The taxi industry got everything they wanted. They weren't regulated. They Fakile and Balula met with them not wearing a mask, and that helped the COVID-19 spread. The lockdown is not that the ANC has imposed has not been an example to the rest of the world. The Western media is lying about it. The Western media promotes the ANC, they praise the ANC, and the ANC dogs the West, and they bash the West every chance they get, and it's sickening. And it's time that somebody got the truth out. Oh, one last thing before I want to tell you guys that are white that are watching this that are from South Africa are white Africans. There's a such thing as a white African. Whites had settled in South Africa about 150 years, or about 100 years before the first whites settled in America. Longer than most whites settled in America. The Afrikaners of French descent were Protestants, Huguenots that faced Catholic oppression that came down there, and also many Voortrekkers became South Africans, chose to not be Dutch and have their dialect Afrikaans because the Dutch East India Company was treating them like shit and treating them like crap, and that's why they were Voortrekkers and moved out of the Cape Province, and also because the British oppressed them as well. So it was a little bit of both. So you guys are white Africans, and I don't care what the ANC says about that you aren't true Africans. No, you guys are true Africans. You're born in Africa, you're raised in Africa. Many of you guys have never been to Europe. You are Africans. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments, just feel free to comment right here. Thank you to Tony Nagy. Thank you to Rebellious Ruth. Thank you to Clem, who came in here. Thank you guys. Thank you guys all who have tuned in. The 4 likes right here. Thank you guys very much. Unfortunately, last minute assignment. I may try to go back on, later, but I'm not sure if I can. I got a busy day ahead. But Tony Nagy says, "Have a good day, Brett. Stay safe. Blessings." Thank you guys very much. Hope everybody.